Oh my god, hey, I am Mickey Joe Theatre and welcome back to my stagey happy place. I have briefly escaped my kingdom of stagey isolation for a visit to my hometown of Bournemouth, but I interrupt my sunny seaside holiday for this breaking news bulletin. I want to talk today about what is happening at the Phantom of the Opera in London.
What's happening at Phantom of the Opera?
You may have heard about a lot of this already on Twitter. There has been a lot of talk about it, but the rumour is that the original London production of the Phantom of the Opera is being renovated and changed during this period of lockdown. I'm going to walk you through from the beginning, explain what we know, and explain what is happening and why this might be happening. It mirrors a lot of what happened last year with Les Mis. Obviously, the original production that has been running for 30 plus years in London has now been removed from the Queen's Theatre, renamed the Sondheim Theatre, and the touring production has taken its place. No more Evolve, different barricades, all that jazz. The rumour is this is now what will be happening with Phantom. It's worth pointing out as well, the changes at Les Mis were in no small part motivated by the fact that because it's a new production, they no longer have to pay royalties to the Royal Shakespeare Company who mounted the original production. By they, I mean producer Cameron Mackintosh. Sir Cameron Mackintosh, produces both shows, Phantom and Les Mis, hence the parallel between what is happening at these at the moment. And a lot of what's happening at Phantom of the Opera at the moment is rumour and speculation. I sound like Glinda. Innuendo, outuendo. But this is what we know. So on the 19th of June, theatrefan.co.uk reported the rumour was that the original Phantom of the Opera production was to be replaced. It says, the original West End production of the Phantom of the Opera is to be replaced with an all-new production, it has been rumoured. According to an inside source, everyone in the production has been let go, which includes the cast, the front-of-house staff, the stagehands, the orchestra, etc. It goes without saying that during a global pandemic, to let everyone go in this way is incredibly shady. This all-new production would reportedly reduce the size of the orchestra to the size of the touring version, that is 14 musicians instead of 27. The rest will be pre-recorded. Gillian Lynn's choreography and Hal Prince's original staging would be updated, which would mean the production would no longer have to pay royalties to the estates of the original creatives. I have various thoughts on this, and we're going to walk through each of these details one at a time. I think the biggest disappointment in all of this is the reduction of the orchestra. I think Phantom as a show, the music of this show is so important, and it's what it rides on. It is a show that is about music and is about singing, and the score is Phantom of the Opera's greatest asset. Say what you will about the original production, it's from the age of 80s mega musicals, where everything had to be spectacle and there had to be some feature about that show that would make audiences and tourists remember it. Miss Saigon was the show where a helicopter flew in. Phantom of the Opera was, for a long time, the show where a chandelier fell on the audience. It seems strange to think about that now because it's such a small detail of the show, but that was what gave it a lot of its original hype. But if you really consider the original production of Phantom of the Opera, it's fairly minimal staging. They do an awful lot with track scenery and drapes. There's an awful lot of drapage going on, and that moment is iconic at the beginning when all of the drape comes away and you see the stage and the chandelier rises up from the stage. But there's a lot of other moments in the show that do come across slightly dated. One of my favourite moments in Phantom of the Opera, for all the wrong reasons, is when they're going to get in the boat during the title song for Phantom of the Opera. It takes so long to get them into this boat and get it set up safely and properly that you have body doubles walking across the top level of the stage to just give them time to get in, facing this way the entire time so that you can't see who they are. It's ridiculous, but it's part of the show's slightly dated charm. The issue with the orchestra as well, music technology has evolved in such a way that you are now able to capture a different sound with 14 than you could when the production originally started. And for most of the paying audience at any given night at Phantom of the Opera, they will not be able to tell the difference. It's disappointing, but it's true. In terms of Gillian Lynn's original choreography and Hal Prince's original staging, they are both excellent. They are both incredible pieces of creative work. Masquerade is an iconic piece of choreography, and there's loads of excellent pieces of ballet. There are not that many moments in Phantom that scream out to me as iconic choreography that must never be touched. It's not like a chorus line, or Jerome Robbins' work in West Side Story, or Gillian Lynn's work in Cats. Those are worth cherishing as pieces of musical theatre choreography that should be maintained in future productions. At the same time, both of these creatives, both Hal Prince and Gillian Lynn, are sadly no longer with us, So for them to not be receiving royalties, it's not quite as personal. I appreciate it goes to their estates. There are various foundations in both of their names. Could a different director, using those same blueprints, achieve great things? Absolutely. And it will always be a tribute to Hal Prince's production. Lawrence Connor was always going to be in some way reliant on Hal Prince's production because he sort of laid that groundwork for Phantom. A lot of creating those characters, creating those relationships, creating the moods of the moment. Lawrence Connor can come in as a direction knowing the original production and just tweak things and amend things. It will always be a tribute to the original work that was done. So I think this debate only gets had because it's the same production that's still been running. Like, Into the Woods is a show that's just as old as Phantom of the Opera, and no one talks about you have to maintain James Lapine's original... Oh, was it James Lapine? Am I going to get that wrong? Into the Woods. Let me fact check myself. Of course it was James Lapine. I knew it was James Lapine. So no one ever talks about keeping James Lapine's original 1987 direction of Into the Woods, or the original set, or the original choreography, when that gets revived. Shows get revived, this happens. Because it's obviously the same production of Phantom of the Opera that has run this entire time, everyone's very precious about all of the details. But when you get a new production, you get to see the show in a whole new, exciting, different way. There have been amazing revivals of shows like Into the Woods, so I think there's space to still be a huge fan of the show and also grow to appreciate a new version. Speaking of which, there was this amazing production of Phantom of the Opera that was recently playing in Greece. It was one of the first shows to be shut down because of coronavirus fears. The set that they made for that looks incredible. They built this whole roof of the Paris Opera House for them to stage the All I Ask of You song on. It looked just outstanding. And certainly possibly even more impressive than a lot of the scenic elements for the London production, which at various moments is very bare, really. It's a lot of candles, that one boat, a big staircase. In response to this news, a petition has been started on change.org. I'm going to read some of this out to you. The Phantom of the Opera is one of the world's most successful stage productions of all time. True. It has brought happiness to millions, as well as steady work and income to many actors over the years. In 2012, a restaged UK tour was launched, hailed to be just as good, if not better, by Cameron Mackintosh and Lawrence Connor. Lawrence Connor directed it. This was the 25th anniversary tour. I saw this when it came to Southampton. The tour is in fact almost completely different from the iconic musical that is Phantom, save for some costumes and the music. This feels a little bit precious to me because this is how revivals happen. It is not a completely different show. The show itself was the same. There were not substantial changes to the show. It had different scenery. It kept many of the costumes, which is rare for a revival. A lot of the set pieces might even have been more impressive than the West End version. The descent down to his lair that Raoul and Madame Giry did was incredible. I remember that being an amazing piece of set. The reality is, not to throw shade at the London chandelier, but there are a lot of times when the chandelier does not fall when it is supposed to in the London production because it is a very old piece of scenery. The chandelier in the touring version, he shoots it, it explodes and it swings all about and it's really cool. I appreciate it's different, it's not the same. At the same time, things do evolve, and the reason a lot of this has to be replaced in the first place is because it is 30 years old and it is falling apart. This is what I've also heard from people working on the show, is that a lot of the set pieces are getting to a point of hazard. It's not safe to be using these very old wooden set pieces that are falling to pieces. This show was not made to last 30 years. When they staged this for the first time in the 80s, they did not think that this was going to have the 3 decades long run that it has now already had. At this point, you have to consider how much longer the show is going to run. You have to look at longevity, which is why he's looking at reducing the orchestra size, which is why he's looking at replacing set pieces, a slightly more sustainable model. At the end of the day, this is his decision. He is the producer. Andrew Lloyd Webber has some involvement as well. He tweeted rather cryptically a few weeks ago that he was going to do everything in his power to make sure that when it reopens, it will be the brilliant original. In terms of his work on it, it's exactly the same. But I do think it can evolve. I do think shows can be revived, and shows close. This is the thing. Phantom fans are very lucky that their favourite show in London has run for 30 years. I think, talk to the Waitress fans right now and they can tell you through their sad pie tears that shows close and you have to move on. And this isn't even closing, it is just changing. It's worth saying as well, from what I have heard, it's not the 2012 tour version that is going into Her Majesty's Theatre. It is the tour version that was meant to be going around this year with Killian Donnelly, that only managed one tour stop in Leicester and then had to permanently close due to coronavirus. I understand where this decision has come from. You build this huge touring production to go around the country, to look amazing, to be very impressive, to play these huge long runs in regional houses. Corona happens, the tour has to close permanently. Your London production has to shut down. Your London production has termites and is falling apart. You put the tour in the London house. It just makes sense. Will we see Killian Donnelly as the Phantom in London when that reopens? I was thinking about this as well. One of my favourite versions of Phantom to watch is the 25th anniversary Royal Albert Hall concert version. If you think how well that version plays as a semi-staged version, it needs so little. There is so little by way of staging. There are these stairs, projections, there's a couple tables, occasionally they'll put a partition on, and the glorious costumes, absolutely, I love the costumes. But the heart of the show and the core of the show is the music and the passion that comes through the music and these characters and these characterizations. It's not about its staging or its set pieces. We don't know 100% what the version that's going into Her Majesty's is going to look like, if it's just slight updates, if it's a whole new set, if it's the 2012 version, if it's the most recent touring version. With the theatrical climate as it is at the moment, we'll be lucky whatever we get reopening, to be perfectly honest. I don't know the personal finances of Sir Cameron Mackintosh. I imagine he's doing all right, but it's difficult to say to anyone in this kind of a bleak financial landscape, you can't do what you have to do to make your shows more profitable and more affordable. If this is what he believes has to be done to keep the show economically viable, to keep running into the future, fans should be grateful for that. I will link the petition down below if anyone feels very passionately about saving the original production. From what I believe, work is beginning in the theatre from today, Monday the 14th. Let me know in the comments what you think about this. It's a very interesting one. Whether you think the original production should be saved, whether it's owed to the original creative team and the fans, and it's given Cameron Mackintosh all this money, whether he should be keeping it, or whether you don't mind, whether you'd like to see a new production, a different take on it, whether you think it's inevitable that shows change and we need to deal with this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. It's a very contentious issue. I would love to know what people think. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more stagey content coming very soon. If you want more updates to the Phantom news story and general stagey gossip, make sure you go and follow @TheatreFan Shaun Tossell on Twitter. I hope that you're all staying safe and that you have a stagey day.
For 10 more seconds, I'm Mickey Joe Theatre. Oh my god, hey, thanks for watching, have a stagey day. Subscribe!